Sparks fly today between head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, Jim Harbaugh, and the top dog at Ohio State, Ryan Day. I've got that story for you. Also, preseason college football releases their coaches poll today. Who's in the top 10 and why is overhyped Notre Dame in the top 10? Chris and I are going to break that down. Other big news in sports, UFC President Dana White comes out today and announces one of the sport's top stars and moneymakers will not fight again in 2020. I'll have the name of who that is and the reason why it's happening. You found the place that helps you be smarter than your friends when it comes to sports. Let's start the show.
You're tuned in to the hottest sports analysis of the week with your hosts Ron Dolbeck and Chris Roberts. And now, here's the first round.
Hey, you're in the first round here with Ron Dolbeck and Chris Roberts on YouTube. Joining us here every single Monday and Thursday, we post shows. Thank you to all of our subscribers that are out there right now. Hit that subscription button if you haven't subscribed yet. We appreciate your time and your views. Also, smash that notification button so you'll know every single time we put out new shows. Chris, we're talking about everything going on in the world of sports. You know, I want to start the show with one of the best things I've seen in the past couple days.
Now, what's that?
Well, this is not a Homer comment, but have you seen Jason Tatum's son, Deuce?
Yeah, I've seen the little fella before, yeah.
I mean, isn't that the coolest thing in the world? He's got like a mini afro going. He's watching on the virtual. They got him up on the virtual board in the NBA bubble.
Right.
And I don't know why. I mean, you know, this is really coming off as soft and I could get my man card taken away. But I just thought that was like the coolest thing in the world because his son, they keep, you know,
right.
the game against the Nets and, you know, the game against Portland. I thought that was so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And, you know, that's what makes the NBA so awesome is they do show that family atmosphere. I mean, you had Steph Curry with Riley.
I know.
You had
Lil Wayne.
You had Little Chris, I mean, making the Blake face.
Right, but they had Lil Wayne up there with the Lakers. I don't need to see that.
Nah, I want to see Lil Wayne.
I want to see Deuce.
I'm just talking about the kids.
Yeah, we got to get like
yeah.
a hashtag more Deuce going on the internet and get that viral because that kid is so cool.
Right.
You know, I mean, he's just saying like, I want to see daddy. And, you know, he hits a three-pointer and he puts his three fingers up. I just thought that was so awesome.
Yeah, it is, and that's what you love about the NBA.
I do. I love that about the NBA. One thing that we haven't talked about in the first round for a while, with good reason, is the NHL.
Yeah.
And it's because of the commissioner, Gary Bettman. It's also because they were gone for 3 months, but we were gone, and we came back with force and entertainment value,
right.
which the NHL hasn't done. And also because, frankly, I can't figure out what they're doing with their playoffs. So we have a new producer, Zach Alicious, back there joining us, and he's a big Lightning fan, and I'm a big Bruins fan. I'm going to start wearing more Bruins gear. But, Zach, if you can somehow explain to me and Chris, who both have college degrees and are avid sports fans, what in the actual hell is going on with the NHL? I can't figure out this format. You've got 3 subdivisions, a 3-game round robin for certain teams, 8-game round robin for other teams. Then there's a playoff that starts. There's some mascots involved. There's a donkey over on a stripper pole. I have absolutely no idea what's going on with the NHL. Enlighten me, please.
Yeah. So no problem. So right now with the NHL format, you actually have the top 4 teams in each conference or on each side that are doing a round robin where they play each other. And that's going to determine the top 4 seeds for each side. So they're automatically in. And the rest of the teams, though, are technically not in the playoffs until they win their best 3 out of 5 series against the rest of the field that didn't make it.
Boring. You already lost me. I just spent 20 seconds trying to understand the NHL playoffs, and I can't ever get that time back again, and I don't understand it anymore. I mean, it doesn't make any comment. There's no, like, it doesn't seem like a flowing, what am I looking for? It just doesn't, it seems so abstract, right, Chris?
It is abstract. I don't get it either. I'm lost.
It's probably because your Boston Bruins, who were the top.
You said the Boston Bruins were at the top?
They were the top.
Okay,
team,
mute your mic right there. Nope.
But
mute your mic right there.
They lost their first 2 games in the round robin, so now they're going to finish either the 3 or the 4 seed at best.
Zach, it's comments
So,
like that.
As a Lightning fan,
I know.
It kind of makes me a little happy.
It's so cool. Remind me of the last time that the Lightning won the Stanley Cup. Okay, so
04.
okay, you have to go back to 04. Thank you so much, Mr. Irrelevant, trying to chime in on camera 3. It's comments like that that will get you muted, and then the next thing is you're on double secret probation, and then you're fired.
Gotcha.
Okay. What I want to talk about is not the NHL. I do want to talk about everything else going on in the world of sports and the biggest stories. Let's get it started with the most interesting story right now going on in sports, and I think it starts with the NBA restart. Are any teams out there dominant? We heard all about the Clippers. We heard about the Bucks. We heard about the Lakers. So far, nobody is dominant in this whole pool, which is almost as messed up as the NHL. At least I have a better idea, and it's a little more simplistically put together how they're going to make it to the playoffs. But is anyone dominant in the NBA? I don't think so. Lakers get turned inside out last night by OKC 105-86. Lakers go 5 for 37 from the three-point distance, and we got people out there talking about how dominant they are. I don't think so. Not so fast. None of the Lakers scored over 20 points last night for that dominant team that's going to walk away with the title. How about Chris Paul going nuts and absolutely dominating Kyle Kuzma last night? 8 for 12 from the field, 21 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. He looked like the Chris Paul from 5 or 6 years ago. Absolutely point on. Awesome game. Nobody's dominant, I don't think, in the NBA. Chris and I will get into that. 76ers announced today. Ben Simmons out indefinitely with a dislocated left knee. What's interesting, he's averaging 16 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and he's getting $30 million. What is that about? $30 million for 16 points, and he can't shoot from the outside. Plus, he doesn't get along with Joel Embiid. $30 million for that. Somebody knows something I don't know. Houston takes on the Lakers tonight. There won't be any LeBron. He has got a mild, sore groin. This is what came up last year. This is my concern with the Lakers coming up with a full season, but even not so much now. They're getting into the playoffs. I don't expect injuries to be a big part of it, but next season, it's starting to go downhill for LeBron. He's one of the best, but that age is starting to catch up. Major League Baseball, Yanks are 9-2. How about the Twins? 10-2 right now with a plus 30 run differential. Nobody saw that coming. If you did, you're a liar. Just tune out right now. We don't want you watching. How about the Miami Marlins making a splash? They're 5-1 right now. You know, for all the corona problems, a terrible stadium, Derek Jeter talking out both sides of his head, the team that's actually on the field is 5-1. Cubs looking strong right now, 10-2. I'll give you 2 reasons why. John Lester, Yu Darvish. Lester's got a .82 ERA, and how about Yu Darvish with a 1.29 ERA and 31 innings pitched in his first 3 starts? I think that is solid. Other problems I think going on with Major League Baseball are all these empty seats out there. They could be generating revenue. They could be allowing kids' charities to come in at 2,000 to 3,000 people and have social distancing. They could have first responders. They could have military families watching these games. How many people can fit into a 45,000 seat stadium and still be safe? Chris and I will talk about that and have answers for you. NFL news. 45 players have opted out on today, Thursday, the deadline for the opt-out in the NFL. Today was the deadline to decide if players are going to be in or out. This is what I can't understand about the NFL. If you opt out and you're a, quote, high-risk player, you're going to get a $350,000 stipend check. If you're a low-risk player, you're getting $150,000, again, to sit out. Who's quantifying if you're a high-risk or low-risk? And why are they getting $350,000 to stay at home? Chris and I will talk about that. Couple of teams out there, 4 of them in the NFL, don't have anybody opting out. Steelers, Rams, Falcons, and Chargers. My Patriots hit the hardest. They've got 8 players sitting out. Also, the former Washington Redskins in the NFL brought out their new helmet design today. We'll have that, and Chris and I also have opinions. Talking about the coaches poll that came out today, the top 25, very interesting. I'll give you the top 3 right now. Clemson, Ohio State, and Bama. Then it starts getting really convoluted. Why is Notre Dame in the top 25? Somebody better have a good answer for that because I don't have one. Notre Dame is super overrated. They have been for 30 years. The last time that they were relevant, that little munchkin Lou Holtz was out there. That was like 35 years ago. We'll get into how overrated they are, and we'll break down the differences between our top 10 and the coaches poll. How about the optics on how college football is going to look this year? Chris and I talked about our big college football show on Monday. You can check it out in our archives on YouTube. But how is it going to look? Are we going to have any fans in the stands? Everybody's got different. There's a 10-1 system for the schedule for the ACC. The SEC is going with a strict 10. The Ivy League has completely cut out not only college football, but all sports. I just am lost on, like, who's in charge. Where do I go for the answers? I don't know how this is going to look. Are we going to get all the games in? And how come we're not hearing from any doctors about what is going to be safe in these 100,000 seat stadiums? We saw NASCAR in Tennessee with an 88,000 seat stadium put 20,000 people in there for a Saturday night NASCAR event. I don't know how healthy that was, but how come we're not hearing from Fauci? How come we're not hearing from doctors? Who am I supposed to listen to? Am I supposed to listen to the conference presidents who have a money agenda? Am I supposed to listen to Fauci, who's probably not really even concerned with college football? Am I supposed to listen to commentators on ESPN or FS1? I don't know where to go to get the answers, but Chris and I will have some of them tonight. ACC released their 10-game conference-only schedule today, plus one non-conference schedule. Wait till you hear some of these ACC teams with their free spot on the bingo board, who they chose to schedule. It'll blow your mind. I've got that list. UFC, Dana White comes out today and announces that Conor McGregor, multi-butt seating, puts seats in the stands for his fights, will not be fighting in 2020. I'm going to have the reason behind it. I'm also going to have an opinion on it. And having said all that, Chris, we have a lot of stuff going on in sports.
That we do.
We're having a moratorium tonight on NHL talk.
Yeah. And I'm still lost, but...
I'm still lost. You know, maybe we should call the show NHL Made Me Lost.
There you go. Yeah, I think so.
It's amazing how long... Have you ever watched the Stanley Cup Finals?
Yes, I have.
And Game 7, or the last game when they hand out the trophy?
Yes.
They bring out the trophy. What other sport do you hear the trophy coming out and there's boos because Gary Bettman is walking out there and almost every NHL fan can't stand him? He is so hated. They're terrible at promotion. They're terrible at scheduling. Who's the top player in the NHL right now? See, that's my point. You don't know. Zach, who's the number one player right now in the NHL, marketing wise, looks, everything, scoring? See, he doesn't know, and he's a big fan.
No. You have to go with Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin. You got Stamkos.
Okay, he's reading off of cheat notes because he wants to score points and he's the new employee. You're at the bottom of the totem pole. Coming up with cheat notes doesn't help you at all. Let's start with the NBA because I think they're kind of getting it right.
Okay.
I actually like what they've done. ESPN with their baseball coverage has put in VR people into the stands. Have you seen that?
Yes,
so
I have.
They have cardboard cutouts, but now they actually have VR people that are moving around, and it looks like a whole crowd scene. It's a little different than the NBA one. Mm-hmm. The NBA one, you can see that there are people zooming, and they're in their own homes, but the ESPN coverage of baseball, it looks like they're in the stands on some of the replays. I actually like that look. And I like the fact that the NBA is now pumping in crowd sound. I like that. Anything you can do to make it feel like it's regular, it's normal. I know it's not. I want you to trick my mind. That's why you're a $100 million corporation. Make me feel like it's real.
I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, if you look at, you look at some of these video games, the stuff looks real. So why can't the NBA actually make the people in the stands actually look as real as the video games?
Right. You've made me interested.
Right.
You've made it safe.
Yes.
Now just make it authentic. Make it as real as you possibly can. That's all I'm asking. Is that too? I mean, it's not too much.
No, it's not too much.
Oh, you know what? I forgot my limoncello.
Yes, you did.
I forgot. I'm so upset, man. After the show, we're coming back on the air because I want my limoncello. And I even asked you to remind me. I got a brand new one. We have a new segment. I'm going to be talking about all these exotic drinks that I'm finding.
Right.
And I was going to start tonight with limoncello.
Hey, I was too busy throwing out the dog.
What time is it? Hold on. You know what? We're going to get one of our assistants to bring me some limoncello. This is
Hey.
going to happen. Anyway, I was talking about at the top of the show concerning the NBA that coming into the restart,
Right.
we thought that Boston was good. We thought that Toronto would be a good team.
Mm-hmm.
We thought there was a handful, like 7 or 8 teams in the West that we thought were good. And then we thought there was an upper echelon of 3 teams. The Clippers, the Lakers, and the Milwaukee Bucks we thought were, if we want to put a label on it, dominant.
Right.
Now we're over a week into it. Who's dominant right now in the NBA, Chris?
I don't see anybody. I mean, you had the Lakers get that big win against the Clippers, but then they turned around and got blew out by OKC last night. So
Right. And in that big win, they had 36 turnovers between the 2 teams.
Right.
And for, I would say, 75% of that game was sloppy as tar. Not good shooting. I didn't think it was good NBA. And now you get them getting absolutely white-walled by OKC. And you've got the Clippers that aren't looking dominant. I don't think Milwaukee is looking dominant. Like, if I said to you, who could take, let's just say the Lakers are number 1 right now. Who could take out the Lakers in the Western Conference?
Only team I see will probably be the Clippers.
Okay, well, what about Houston? What about Denver? Denver could get on a streak. Denver's solid.
Right, Denver's solid.
Okay.
Houston, it just depends on Russell Westbrook. If Russell Westbrook doesn't go off on a tangent of shooting errant shots,
Right.
Houston has a chance.
He's either white hot or he's non-existent.
Yeah, he's just a 3-quarter player. I mean,
Right.
he's good through the first 3 quarters. Fourth quarter,
Right.
he's just throwing up shots.
Right. And so I was talking to some of my other sports friends outside of the studio here about the fact that the Lakers didn't look good against OKC at all. And I didn't think that they looked really dominant, as we've been talking about, since the restart. But I don't think these games are really mattering because there's no home court advantage. You're not playing for seeding really anymore. They've clinched the number 1 seed for whatever that means in the NBA playoffs coming up. But if you're a dominant team, you got to have that killer instinct, and you want to be intimidating people and sending a message to them before the playoffs start. You want to be peaking, not load managing or going the other way. And I don't see anybody peaking right now. I would think out of anybody in the NBA that LeBron would have a killer instinct right now and be like, look, we're going to send a message to everybody in these 8 games. You don't want to see us in the first round. You don't want to see us in the conference finals. And I don't see that. I see mediocrity. I see them kind of taking games off. I see really bad shooting. Who's their perimeter shooters? They brought in Deion Waiters. They brought in Danny Green, and they brought in J.R. Smith, who hasn't played since I was a fetus. I think Green is the only real outside threat. And what do we know going into the finals or going into the playoffs with LeBron? He needs to be able to facilitate out and have outside shooters. I don't see it right now. I don't see a dominant team right now. It's disappointing.
Well, I mean, it's disappointing. I mean, because you have the NBA to take off of these breaks. And, I mean, if you played basketball, you want to keep that hot streak going.
But they've been on a break for 3 months. Why
Yeah.
aren't we seeing the Lakers? Why aren't we seeing the Clippers? Why aren't we seeing the Bucks with killer instinct? Like, I want to rip your throat out. We're ready. You don't want to deal with us. And getting your game better, honed in on the championship. Like that, we have a kill mentality. Why don't we see that?
Well, I mean, again, you have to think, too, a lot of these teams are still missing key pieces that was allowing them to make runs. Like, you have, like, the Lakers. You had Avery Bradley. He's not playing.
I know. Avery Bradley's the reason why the Lakers don't have killer instinct.
No, I'm just throwing it, just giving it to you. Look, they have key pieces. So when they were making those type of runs, some of those pieces aren't there. So now you're having to have players like Deion Waiters who comes in, and he may go, 5 for 20
points a game.
Right.
That's it.
Right. So now you have those pieces that was there that actually made the team run and function before. They're not there, and you're implementing new pieces in, and it kind of throws off the chemistry. So, I mean, you're going to see these teams trying to get that chemistry back before it gets to the playoffs.
I think they should be getting it back, and getting it back now. They should have had a mindset. We got 8 games to get focused. We have 8 games to send a message. We have 8 games to sharpen everything up and knock off all the cobwebs and not play mediocre basketball. For crying out loud, we're getting paid millions of dollars. And we're going to be playing for a title. And for somebody that is so honed in on legacy and championships. I think LeBron is playing, I don't know, I don't want to say mediocre ball, but I don't see the killer instinct, and I think it's disappointing. It's actually building interest for me to watch the playoffs to see if we'll actually get good NBA quality basketball in the playoffs and how much more focused they'll be as opposed to right now, because right now I'm swimming in a sea of mediocrity. No one is dominant right now. There's teams in the NBA that are obviously better than other teams, but in the West you've got two teams that are supposed to be great, and they're playing with the 6 or 7 teams underneath them. It's like everybody's playing to the level of their competition, and the quality of basketball that we're getting isn't very good, and it's disappointing. It's not as disappointing as me not having my limoncello on the set, but it's getting there. Moving on to Major League Baseball, Chris. How about the Yankees are 9-2? Everybody's talking about them in the National League. The Dodgers are ripping it up. I think they have good pitching and good hitting. But how about the Twins at 10-2? I don't think anybody saw that coming. Plus 30 run right now differential. Twins are 10-2. How about them? Which is crazier? The Cubs are 10-2. We could understand that. They have good pitching, good hitting.
Right.
That's understandable. Which is a crazier story? The Miami Marlins right now, with all of the carnival of insanity going on with that organization, are 5-1. Or the Twins, who are 10-2.
I'm good with the Twins that are 10-2. I mean, like you said before, who would have known that the Twins were that good?
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't have thought the Twins were that good going into the season. You know, I looked like you. I looked at the Yankees and the Dodgers.
Right. Those are the obvious ones.
Right. I mean, you look at some of the other teams that like a tier below. You have like you have like your Nationals. You have these other teams there, but not the Twins.
Right. We knew the Nationals were going to have run scoring problems when they've lost their catcher for 80 games due to drugs. They traded their third baseman out to the California Angels, not the Anaheim Angels. Anthony Rendon. Zimmerman steps away. They still have a great pitching staff. But I never saw any of this. I'm going to say that the Marlins being 5-1 right now, first of all, they're not a good team.
Right.
I mean, I can't even name one player on their team. And second of all, they're the ones that have all the corona problems. They're the ones that have an owner now in Derek Jeter who doesn't know what he wants. You know, one day he says this, the next day he says something else. And they play in a big top. It's like a circus. They literally play in a circus. Who else has an aquarium behind home plate? Maybe they got rid of that last year. I don't know. But that whole thing in the backboard with the Dolphins going in center field, that's got to go. That has absolutely got to go. But I'm going to go with the Marlins being 5-1 is the craziest story. I never would have seen that coming. But it makes for a good story. I think the Cubs are looking strong. And, of course, my Red Sox have absolutely zero pitching and no hope of making the playoffs. I'm just chalking this one up. Let's talk about something that's real. Major League Baseball comes out and says they're losing $640,000 a game for every game played with nobody in the stands. Now, here's my question. Again, billion-dollar corporation, global corporation.
Right.
You've got a stadium that most of them hold 40, 45,000, 48,000 people. Mm-hmm. Why aren't you putting 8,000 people in those stands? That's less than 20% of you. So you could have social distancing. And here's my solution, or here's my thought to it, is you put out 4,000 tickets for sale at $50. You put a semi-premium on it. I think $50 to go see a game, it's not that bad. But what it does is it raises $200,000 for that team.
Right. Which
these teams are owned by multi-trillionaires. They don't need the money. But what you can do, for every game with the 4,000 tickets at $50, you raise $200,000. You take $25,000, it goes right into a local charity. Mm-hmm. You take another 4,000 seats, because we're getting to 8,000, which is at 48,000 seats. 8,000 seats is about 17%.
Right.
Plenty of room for social distancing. What you do with the other 4,000 seats is you donate them. So I've got some suggestions. You donate them to teachers. How about first responders?
Yeah.
You think there's some people in San Diego that are first responders that would love to come out to a game for free? You sell 4,000 tickets at $50 a head, and you donate $25,000 of that, $200,000 to local charities. Then you get another 4,000 tickets, and you give it away to first responders. I got another one. What about children's charities?
Yeah.
Give away 4,000 tickets to children's charities.
Yeah, I mean, you do that too. I mean, where they make their money up at is in the concession. So, I mean, it's a good idea, and it's a way to make the money back.
And I'll tell you another way they make the money. What is the biggest problem right now with Major League Baseball? Is grabbing what demographic?
Minorities.
Minorities. What about millennials?
Millennials.
That 18 to 25 range. They're in front of a screen.
Yeah.
They're losing that market big time because kids would rather play video games. They want something that's more interactive. UFC is doing a lot better job at giving them a product that they promote in an awesome way.
Right.
And Major League Baseball is losing that. Here's a great way to grab that young demographic back.
Well, that too, and the games are long. I mean, they have to find a way to speed the game up.
I
mean,
know. That's a whole nother dirty thing that we... All right, here's another one. What about military families?
Yeah, I think that'll work as well.
Yeah, so you donate tickets to teachers, you donate them to first responders, you donate them to children's charities in your local area, you donate them to military families. 4,000 tickets go to any of those demographics. Doesn't matter. There's plenty of charities in all these big cities, and these people would get a free night out. It builds great rapport with the community.
Right.
You're grabbing in those younger demographics that you're losing right now, and it's a great way to give back. And then you sell 4,000 tickets at $50 a pop. You raise $200,000. You give another $25,000 for every single home game. You get, 30 home games this year?
Right.
Every single home game, you're giving $25,000 to a local charity. How does that go for building rapport and raising your PR numbers for Major League Baseball?
Yeah, they definitely need the numbers. I mean, PR anyway. I mean, baseball is such a major hit
Right.
in the off season with the players and the players union going back and forth, and I think that's a way to actually turn around their image. To be honest with you.
Chris, you have a college degree,
Yeah.
right? From
Yeah.
FSU?
Yes.
Which is barely a school. That's an all-girls school, right?
It was at one point.
Was. Okay, we have to quantify it.
Yeah.
I have multiple degrees from the University of Florida.
Okay.
Rob Manfred has a degree from somewhere, the commissioner of baseball.
Right.
Why can't he figure this out? Why are two guys like us doing a podcast on YouTube figuring out the answers that I don't even hear Major League Baseball talking about? Why isn't he doing this?
Well, Ron, I think these guys they're all about bottom line numbers, and so right now
This is how you fix the bottom line number.
No, but the way
You win over these young kids who are going to watch for the rest of their lives. Get them interested now.
Yeah, but the way they look at things, Ron, is this: if somebody comes to the park, somebody gets sick, we get sued. So they just don't want
Social
to do it.
distancing. If NASCAR can do it.
Ron. I feel you. We on the same page.
I know. I can't. I can't do it, man. I'm out of my mind. But I got to ask you, what's going on with the Bengals motif? You're matching, which is great. You got the kicks that match the shirt that matches the hat, but it's like this underdog theme I'm getting. I mean, why Bengals?
I mean, hey, I just threw on the Bengals. It actually matched the shirt. I mean, went
Yeah,
with
you're
the khakis
matching.
and went with the kicks too. So
No comment for me on my
Had-
Grays.
Yeah,
I got my new Grays hat. Homestead Grays Negro League style. I got a bunch of Negro League jerseys. I love sporting those.
Yeah.
I think they're some of the most classic jerseys. This one is the Josh Gibson.
right.
Hit more home runs than Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
One of the most underrated players, but we're going into positive things about baseball. And we need to keep baseball in its little cage where everything is negative, and we can't come up with solutions. We have to keep... That's it. No more Major League Baseball talk. So we have put a prohibition and a moratorium on NHL and MLB. One thing we haven't put a moratorium on is our viewers. We want to thank our 500 plus subscribers. And we want to encourage you, if you haven't subscribed to the show, hit the subscription button right now. Become a part of the First Round family. Even more important than that, hit the notification button right now to let you know every time we have a show post on Mondays or Thursdays. You can get a hold of the show in many ways. You can follow us on Twitter at the First Round 1, the number 1, or email in your comments and questions, which I have gotten backlogged on, and I should have had some out here today. And I promise you, Monday we will get to your comments and questions. You can get a hold of us that way at thefirstraundrd@gmail.com. Having said that, Chris, we're on to the NFL. 1 second. Is my assistant here? Okay. We're going to get an assistant. But before we do that, let's talk about the NFL. Today was the deadline for players that chose to opt out and receive $350,000 for opting out. So let me translate that for all the Florida State fans out there and Yankee fans. They're going to get $350,000 to not play. I know this will make sense to Yankee fans. It will not make sense to people that have not been lobotomized, regular human beings like myself. 45 players have opted out. The deadline was today. High-risk players, the NFL says, will receive $350,000. Low-risk players will receive $150,000 to not play. How are we quantifying high risk and low risk? And why are they getting so much money? This has got to be the NFLPA stepping up and doing a great job, because that's what their job is, to be advocates for the players.
Right.
I don't know how we're quantifying this and why they're getting $350,000 and $150,000, Chris, but I will leave it to you.
The only way I can see that this is happening is if for the high-risk players, which are those who are probably like offensive linemen who have respiratory issues or whatnot, who may have been possibly exposed during training camps or the voluntary workouts, and they decided to opt out. I guess that's the only way I can see them compensating them more. But personally, I think everybody should be compensated on the same level, whether you are high risk or low risk. Because, I mean, hey, at the end of the day, all of you guys are probably multimillionaires anyway.
They are. 4 teams come out and don't have anyone opting out. Those are the Steelers, Rams, Falcons, and Chargers. All those are middle-of-the-road teams, and I'm not sure how many of them actually have a chance at the playoffs. I would say the Steelers probably have the best chance. Everybody else is rebuilding. And then, of course, my New England Patriots, who I love more than life itself, have the most hardest hit out of all the NFL teams, with 8 players opting out and deciding not to play. Moving on to other stories in the NFL, how about the former Washington Redskins coming out with their new helmet? Have you seen it, Chris?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah, not...
Bland?
Yeah.
That's the best you could come up with?
That's pretty much.
Is that picture up there, Zach?
Yeah, I got it up.
Yeah. So it's just the number with the same colors on the side of the helmet. I'm still going with Washington Union. The Union defeated slavery. You unionize. When you get married, you create a union. You're coming together. It's all positive. Dan Snyder can't get out of his way. This is what we're left with. I'm giving this... I mean, this is actually like the last 2 brain cells trying to function at this point. I'm giving this a D minus. No effort.
Right, you're talking about the Washington football team.
I know. Exactly right. The Washington football team. So give me a grade on the helmet.
F, man. I mean, because...
F?
F.
It's got to be the worst helmet in NFL now.
It is. I mean, it sucks, man. I mean,
yeah, I think it does too. Skipping that, one of the hot stories we talked about at the top of the show was college football, and we know there's a rivalry between Ohio State, and we know there's a rivalry with them and Michigan, the team up north. But in a coaches conference call this week that the Big Ten put on, Jim Harbaugh interrupted Ryan Day during the... Okay, I'm going to get my limoncello. Give me a second.
So Rod is getting his limoncello.
Gotta have his limoncello.
He's bringing in our mascot.
Okay, we have a new mascot. I don't know if you guys heard her or not. This is Princey's. She decided that she wanted to be a part of the show. So, you made your bed. Now you gotta sit in it. Now, I don't know where my pen went flying. That was on me. So, back to the conference call today.
Right.
On Monday. Big Ten conference call, and Jim Harbaugh is on the call. Ryan Day is on the call.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim Harbaugh, according to Barstool.com, interrupts Ryan Day to let him know that they are out of bounds with their practicing techniques and NCAA regulations as far as on-field practicing. That he's telling him he was cheating.
You know what? He's telling me he's cheating. Now, is that because Michigan has beaten Ohio State in like 7 or 8 years now.
Michigan's lost 8 straight times.
Yeah.
So far. 8 straight times, and they've lost 15 out of the last 16. The only thing better than Jim Harbaugh interrupting Ryan Day on a conference call is Ryan Day's response. Did you happen to hear what he said?
No, you got to give me this one.
According to Bucknuts.com, Day told his team later in the day, the Wolverines better hope for a mercy rule because we're going to hang 100 on them this year.
Oh, wow.
I mean, do you think that's going to be on the bulletin board in Columbus at the end of November? I think it's November 27th they're scheduled to play, but I think that's some bulletin board material.
That's bulletin board material. Ryan Day must have some Steve Spurrier in him somewhere because that's crazy.
They better be praying for a mercy rule because we're going to hang 100 on them. Now, last year, they only beat them 56-27 and embarrassed them. And I think the year before that in Columbus, it was even worse. I think they put 63 or 64 on him, and that was the Cordell Patterson. Who was the
Cordell
Jones.
Cordell Jones. There you go.
Yeah, he had a cup of coffee in the NFL. Might be floating around on some taxi squad at this point. I don't know. But when you haven't beaten Ohio State 8 straight times, you've gotten beaten by them, and Ohio State has won 15 out of the last 16, Jim Harbaugh might want to throttle back on the trips to Rome. You might want to throttle back on telling Ryan Day in a conference call that your linebackers are working. They were working with assistant coach Al Washington on the field, and that's an NCAA violation. Why don't you just get your program straight? But I thought that fiery going back and forth banter was actually kind of tight, and this is what I'm missing about college football right now.
Yeah, I miss that too. I mean, I love his response. I mean, again, Ryan Day has some Steve Spurrier in him, and I believe they will hang 100 on Michigan.
I know, that's so sick. I mean, you want to talk about like the teaser pick of the year, that's got to be it. Okay, so the show from hell is continuing. Anyway, college football poll comes out today. Clemson's number 1, Ohio State 2, Bama 3, and then at 4, the coaches, which we know most of the time, especially when they're in a play week, when the season has started,
right.
Most of the time it's not even these coaches. It's some GA who goes and fills out the bracket for him and says, hey, does this look good? This is what we're sending in. But needless to say, Georgia's number 4, LSU comes in at 5, Oklahoma's at 6, Penn State at 7. They've got Florida at 8 behind Penn State somehow. I don't know. 9, Oregon, and rounding out the top 10 for some reason that my mind can't comprehend is Notre Dame. Again, overhyped in the top 10. Chris, explain to me why.
I don't know. I mean, they can't beat anybody worthwhile. I mean, how can a team like Notre Dame continue to be in the top 10 and they can't beat, they can barely beat teams like USC or, some
directional
ACC
schools.
Team, right?
It's stupid. They play a very weak schedule, and then they talk about how tough their schedule is, and then they'll go 10-1, 9-2. They'll get into a New Year's Day bowl game. They'll come down and play somebody in the SEC or the ACC and get blitzed, and everybody will just sit there and go, "Why?"
Yeah.
And then the next year they'll be ranked again, like now, top 10. So let's talk about Notre Dame. Last year they played 2 teams, I think, of any quality or relevance.
Right.
They played Michigan,
Right.
who was 14th. They only lost to Michigan 45-14. In a year where Michigan didn't have a quarterback, was under tremendous pressure, their offense was ineffective,
Right.
and they had a down year. They only lost to Michigan 45-14.
Yeah. Now, how many fumbles did Shea Patterson have last year? And they couldn't create not one in that game? Like, what? I don't get it.
I'm so over how Notre Dame fan is usually the guy that grew up in the 50s and the 60s, and they're holding on to like the Newt Rockne years when they were good, back like, when my dad was a fetus.
Right.
And that they just can't get through the myopicness in their head to realize that Notre Dame hasn't been relevant for like 30 years. And then they went 13 years in between Jerome Bettis and Golden Tate where they didn't have anyone taken in the first round of the NFL draft. And then they went through coaches like Bob Davies, Ty Willingham, and Weiss and on, and they just haven't been relevant. But somehow every year at the beginning of the season, they're relevant. How about the other team of relevance last year they played? They went down to the SEC and played Georgia because they thought that they got their big boy boots on, and they got beat. Yeah. And it wasn't even as close as that because they got a garbage touchdown in the last 2 minutes of the game. Otherwise, it would have been 23-10. So they lost that game. They barely beat a USC team that went through 4 quarterbacks last year due to injury and has one of the worst head coaches in college football. They barely beat them 30-27. And USC was crap last year. Then they played Virginia. Virginia's running game was so bad. Are you ready for this stat? When they played Notre Dame last year, they had 4 yards rushing on 29 carries. Now, before a myopic Notre Dame fan goes, see how good our defense is? We're so awesome. They also threw for over 352 yards against Notre Dame's awesome defense. Yeah. And just showing how bad Virginia's running game was at that point of the year. 4 yards rushing on 29 carries. Terrible. The other big impressive wins that Notre Dame had last year, because some of where you're ranked today is based on what you did last year, which is just the way college football is. But let's go over some of the huge monumental wins that Notre Dame had last year. They knocked off Louisville.
New coach.
What about New Mexico? They're a power in the Southwest. Everybody knows about the New Mexico Lobos. They beat them. They beat Bowling Green. They beat Duke. They beat Boston College. And they beat the rising phoenix of the Pac-12, the mighty Stanford Cardinals, who just happened to finish the season 4-8. In other words, 4 wins and 8 losses. And these are the impressive victories that Notre Dame fan will hang on their wall to say we deserve to play on New Year's Day against an ACC team or an SEC team. And then it gets very quiet because they come down and get blown out. And they wait for the offseason to be done so we can rise again and be in the top 10. How?
How? Money talks, my man.
Money. $15 million a year from NBC to put drench, to put scat, to put garbage. This is not good football.
Oh, of course it isn't.
This is not good football. Why? I'm so over this. I hate Notre Dame. We're done. Unless you have something good to talk about Notre Dame or add to the show, we've got to hang it up.
We could have been left Notre Dame a long time ago.
I'm trying to figure out why they're in the coaches poll preseason top 10. What are these coaches looking at? Ian Book?
Yeah.
That's what they're hanging their hat on, the awesome offense that they have?
I guess so.
The fact that they get blown out every year in the bowl game? I mean, last year they had a win against Iowa State.
Okay, Iowa
That's
State
the
was
big win.
Okay.
Iowa State.
Decent team. I mean, tough.
Decent. Middle of the road team that plays in a conference with no defense.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Decent team, but
Chris, how's college football going to look this year? Are we going to have – these are the questions I just wrote down today. Are there going to be fans in the stands? If so, how many? I feel like nobody has the answers. Where am I supposed to find the answers when I want to know? I'm trying to get a picture of what college football is going to look like. Like, I've gotten over the fact that we're going to have, full stands. We're going to have pregame traditions. We're going to have a Gator Walk or a Tiger Walk or all these other traditions that go along. Nobody's meeting in the Grove this year for, down in Mississippi. All these Boomer Sooners is not running across the field. Maybe it is. I don't know. They're going to have social distancing between the horses because now animals can have corona. I mean, I don't know. It's just crazy. Who do I look to for the answers? What is it going to look like? There's so many questions. First of all, let's start with, are we going to see fans, and what is college football going to look like?
I think we may see fans. There was some talk. I was just listening to some of the guys on the Florida State on their chat line, and then they're going to supposedly try to get probably maybe 10,000 fans in the stadium, maybe.
And that's how many FSU normally has for a home game. I'm sorry, that's homecoming. The other games are usually around 5,000. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, they're going to try to put at least 10,000 people in the stands. For the most part, most colleges will probably have their boosters, have their tickets or whatnot, and then they probably try to get a limited amount of students and a smaller amount of general admission. So again, we're looking at probably hopefully 10,000 people in the stadium.
So I can live with that.
Right.
At least get it on TV. I can deal with that. I'm sad that we're going to miss a lot of the things that we talked about, meeting in the Grove or the tailgating beforehand and all that stuff. But I mean, if it's on TV and I've got a game, at least I can deal with that. What I can't deal with right now is the fact that I don't know where to go for the answers. Like, what is the season going to look like? Are we going to have a full season? The closer we get to the beginning of the season, the more doubt there is we'll have a season.
I mean, yeah.
Who do I turn to for the answer? Like, do I turn to the conference presidents? Do I turn to the talking heads on ESPN? Do I listen to Shannon and Skip on FS1? Guys like me and you? Chat rooms? Who do I talk to? Like, no doctors are coming out saying, I haven't heard anybody in the healthcare field be brought up and said, okay, this is what we think could be safe with 100,000 seat stadiums. I haven't heard any of that.
Right.
Why not?
Well, I mean, because right now you still have colleges still trying to figure out what they're going to do. Just the other day, they were trying to figure out, okay, are they going to put their players in a bubble? If they are going to put them in a bubble, how are they going to keep their players in a bubble so they can go to school and learn? They're still trying to figure out, how many students are coming on campus. There are a lot of students that's going to do online classes, but do you bring on freshmen and seniors to campus? I mean, so a lot of schools are still trying to figure that information out. So, I mean, those questions are questions that are actually relevant questions.
I think you're absolutely right, and there's more questions out there than answers. It's almost hard for me to start getting excited about college football. I want to so bad, but the question is like, who am I believing in? Who's out there? Who am I supposed to listen to? I don't even know.
I mean, it's hard because really you think about it. I mean,
Who are the authorities that I should be listening to?
I mean, right now, the only authorities that you have that you could possibly listen to is the actual conference.
But what about Fauci? What about the CDC? I'm talking about health, people in the health industry that know what's going on. Because the presidents that are setting the schedule have to be talking to people in the health industry.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. But, most of these conference chairmen, I mean, for the most part, they're generally talking to the health professionals at the major universities. Like, I'm pretty sure Sankey for the SEC is talking to someone at UF or
CDC.
CDC, right? So I'm pretty sure that's who they're looking to.
Why aren't we getting that information? Why aren't we getting, as it gets closer to the beginning of the season, why aren't we getting a clearer picture of what's going on instead of more questions, more ambiguity, more feeling like I'm lost, more not knowing who to turn to? Where do I get the answers? Why is that happening?
Because, Ron, nobody knows anything. I mean, they're still trying to figure out this disease and, trying to figure out, okay, how is it going to spread? How is it going to affect, us as far as, putting people in the stands? I mean, it's just so much to try to figure out. And so right now they're just going with, hey, we're going to have a football season.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but I guess I should hang my hat on the fact that hopefully we're going to have football. It seems to me we're going to have at least 4 games. I feel pretty good about 6. I don't know about a whole season. And bowl games, I mean, I'm not even thinking about that right now. Are you? I'm
not thinking about bowl games, but what I'm more worried about is like how the conferences are actually scheduling these games. You have the ACC starting like in the beginning of September.
Right.
You have the SEC starting
September 27th.
Right, the end of September.
Yeah, late.
So you have these differences in these conferences. What happens if the ACC starts out and then all of a sudden there's an outbreak at these games? How is the SEC going to navigate that?
Reactionary.
Right.
That's not proactive. Point. Reactionary.
And that's my point. Is I think they should have all started at the same time, so the games wouldn't be scattered out.
Well, then the ACC becomes the guinea pigs.
Exactly.
Yeah. So ACC comes out today, releases their 10-game schedule +1, so each team in the conference can play one non-conference team. It's interesting how some of these ACC teams decided to choose their one free spot on the bingo board. Florida State decided to go with a strength of schedule move and scheduled powerhouse Stanford, who they almost lost to last year. Was it last year or the year before? Year before in that rain-drenched game. How about Notre Dame? We were talking about how awesome their schedule is. So they decided to slot a real blue-chip team, which was Western Michigan. You know who's really mopping up out of this whole ACC thing?
Who?
Liberty. Liberty has already scheduled themselves to play 3 ACC teams and collect some fat paychecks, even if it's just TV money. Virginia Tech scheduled Liberty. Pitt scheduled Miami of Ohio. Miami in Coral Gables, South Florida, scheduled UAB.
Right.
And Virginia, who played in a New Year's Day Power 6 game against Florida last year,
Right.
scheduled mighty VMI. What do you think about these schedules, Chris? They picked up some pretty tough teams there. We're going to see some good football.
Yeah, they picked up some pretty tough teams, but I mean it sucks because really a lot of those teams were depending on the SEC to have that +1 game.
Right.
I mean, you had Florida and Florida State. I mean, I'm pretty sure Florida State would have loved to play Florida instead of Sanford.
Right.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, but that's an absolute loss.
Even though it is a loss, it's still. I mean, they would have rather have that rivalry game
and been knocked out of bowl contention if we even have bowls.
Well,
I can't see that.
I
I wanted to see that, of course. I want to see Florida State.
But everybody, if you are a true diehard fan,
right,
you want to see that game every year, regardless.
Yes,
of
the fans want to see it,
whether it's good or not.
Right, but does the Florida State coaching staff want that game, or Stanford?
Who? But
the Florida State coaching staff. Do they want to play Florida this year and get? Let's just be real. They'll get blitzed.
They will get beat this year.
Right.
But
or do you want to play Stanford and get another W?
Again, I think that game came into place once Florida decided.
Right.
They weren't gonna. Once the SEC decided they're gonna take away that game, because not only is that an implication for Florida State, but you have Clemson and South Carolina.
Right.
You have
Kentucky
and Louisville.
Yeah.
Right. You have Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of those games are even though the ACC, other than Clemson, the ACC will probably get beat down in those games. But still, those are games that meant something to each of these schools.
Yeah, they did. They meant something to the fans, and we all have to take concessions right now because of the COVID-19 mess that's been going on in 2020. I just want to get college football back, and I want to see good games. I don't want to see, Florida State or some of these other teams picking up directional schools, because I'm not going to get hyped to watch that. Frankly, honestly, I really love what ESPN has done in the offseason, because they've played a lot of the old games, the old bowl games that we wanted to see, games that we don't mind rewatching, which we have 2 blue chip teams or, Power 5 conference teams going at it, old bowl games that were relevant in the years that they came out. I don't want to see the directional schools out there. What I do want to see is a great product from us to you. We want to thank all of our subscribers out there. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button right now. More importantly, hit the notification button so you'll know every single Monday and Wednesday when we post brand new content right here on YouTube. Tell your friends about the first round. Get them to subscribe and become a part of the family. Help grow us to epic proportions. And Chris, last thing I wanted to cover in the show today was UFC. Dana White, president of the UFC, comes out this week in an interview with Barstool.com and says that Conor McGregor will not fight the rest of the year. And there's some pretty big reasons behind it. One, because Conor came out earlier, I believe it was in June, and was in an interview with ESPN's Ariel Helwani and said he's retired. Now, this isn't the first time that ship has sailed with Conor McGregor. He also announced his retirement in March of 2016, and then again in April of 2019, and then again this year in 2020. So this is a little bit of an old song that's getting played again. And I don't know if they offered him the right money and said Khabib's on the table, I think he comes out of retirement. But whatever, he's his own man. He can, float his ship the way he wants to, and I get that. What I don't get is Dana White's attitude of, look, he retired, and our position is at the UFC is he's retired until he announces otherwise. Because when you look at the top money-making fights in the UFC ever, the top 5 money-making fights, number 5, Conor versus Eddie Alvarez sold 1.3 million pay-per-views. That's about $78 million.
Right.
That was number 5. The number 4 biggest grossing fight ever in UFC history, Conor versus Nate Diaz, UFC 196. That was 1.5 million pay-per-views sold at $60 a pop.
All right.
Number 2 was Conor versus Nate Diaz, number 2. The second fight. That sold 1.65 million subscriptions at pay-per-views. That was UFC 202. And the number 1 biggest money-making event in UFC history was Khabib versus Conor in UFC 229. 2.4 million pay-per-views sold. So 4 out of the top 5 UFC events that made the most money ever in the company's history involved Conor McGregor. How can you sit back and just say, well, if that's his position on being retired, maybe he doesn't care about money anymore? I can't believe he's at that position.
Well, I mean, you have to look at the UFC. They're actually doing it right.
Right. I think they've done a great job.
Right. So I mean, when you look at the UFC, you have to look at, okay, so they're doing it right. So think about all the fighters that are up right now that are actually fighting and going, earning their shot at titles. Why would you push them down to put up Conor when these guys actually work their way to get into some of these big fights?
Isn't Conor at the top of the 155 or 170 class if he steps back in and decides to unretire? He's got to be, if he's not number 1, he's got to be at 2 or 3. He's the big draw. Everybody wants to see him, even if he's at 3. And you put aside number 2, whoever the number 2 contender is. This is what the UFC does so well. This is why they're a $4 billion company. This is why they have surpassed all the other sports during this corona pandemic, is because they give us the fights that we want to see, and everybody wants to see Conor.
So everybody wants to see Conor. I mean, what was the last fight he had? What was that?
Donald Cerrone took him out in 48 seconds.
Right. So I mean, that was the last fight that he actually was in.
Right. Is that a fight that you would pay pay-per-view for?
I mean, of course not.
No, I wouldn't either. But you know what? Look at all the hype it created for Donald Cerrone. Imagine if he gets in there with Justin Gaethje, or he gets in there with Khabib, or if he gets in there with Dustin Poirier. Any of those guys. I mean, I can name off 6 or 7 guys. I would love to see those fights.
Yeah, you would love to see, but I mean, right? I mean, really, the last time we saw Conor in there with a top-notch guy, he actually got destroyed. So, I mean, quite naturally.
What, Khabib?
Yes.
Yeah, but that was years ago. That was a while ago. I'm ready to see him. I think he's in shape. I think he's motivated. Would you pay to see another Khabib rematch?
Would I pay to see another Khabib rematch?
Yeah.
Probably not.
What?
Probably not. No.
Okay, so anyway, you might want to snap the Prozacs in half tomorrow for breakfast, Chris. That's a lot of people would, and the bottom line is he's not fighting. I want to talk about 2 guys that will. August 15th, a big fight. The trilogy ends with Stipe Miocic stepping into the octagon against Daniel Cormier. Chris and I have talked about that. You've got a super awesome, tactical, brutal, heavy-hitting fighter in Stipe Miocic going up against one of the toughest chins in the heavyweight division, one of the best wrestlers in UFC history, and Daniel Cormier. We've broken that one down. I want to go beyond that to talk about what I think is the biggest fight in the UFC this year. Happens September 19th, and I cannot wait for this fight. This is like, it's almost better than limoncello. I'm like tingling thinking about this matchup. Israel Adesanya taking on Paulo Costa. Adesanya is the champion right now at 19-0. Paulo Costa out of Brazil is 13-0. He's been like a skyrocketing talent in the UFC over the past year. That fight was supposed to happen. Paulo Costa got hurt. He had surgery. It's back on for September 19th. How high is the rating on this for you to see this fight? How much interest is this driving through your veins right now?
And this is pretty high. I mean, I'm very, very high on Israel Adesanya. I mean, looking at, well, even though his last fight with Yoel Romero wasn't necessarily entertaining, but I mean,
I don't think there was any strikes thrown in that fight.
I mean, no, I think they were.
That was more like ballroom dancing or dancing with the stars.
Exactly, more like 2 guys doing a tango. But I mean,
we ended up watching Dancing with the Stars with some UFC guys dressed up as dancers. That's what that was.
Right. So
disappointing.
I'm actually interested. It's actually interested to see this fight, though.
Yeah, I think Adesanya is a good middleweight champ, but right now, if it was up to me, I'm putting all of my money, everything I own, 2 out of the 3 children I have, I'm selling their souls to put all the money on Paulo Costa. I think this guy, his nickname is the Eraser, but if you've seen him fight, I mean, that's exactly what he does. He just erases guys. He defeated Yoel Romero earlier this year in, I think it was a 3rd round unanimous decision. But in his other 13 fights, 11 out of his 13 fights have either ended in a technical knockout or a knockout. And the longest he's ever gone in any other fight besides a 3-round decision to
Right.
Yoel Romero is 2 minutes and 38 seconds. That's the longest anybody's lasted. And he hasn't fought a bunch of bums. He fought Yoel Romero, who's
Right.
tougher than titanium. He also beat down Uriah Hall. And he took care of Johnny Hendricks, albeit at the end of his career, but he's still going to be a UFC Hall of Famer. He still has a chin, and he still had an awesome punch, and he fights with heart. I know it was at the end of Johnny Hendricks' career when Paulo Costa took him out, but having said that, none of these guys are bums, and the fact that he hasn't even gone past 2 minutes and 38 seconds in the second round for any other fight, this guy, I am sold on Paulo Costa. He is an absolute phenom, physique-wise, striking-wise. He has a chin. Did you see the fight with him and Yoel Romero?
No, I just caught some of the highlights of it.
Okay, you should watch that fight. Absolutely. If you have not seen Paulo Costa against Yoel Romero, get onto YouTube and check it out. Definitely it's got to be one of the top 10 best fights ever that the UFC has put on. Best ever. So, if you had to pick somebody right now, who are you taking in this fight?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, like I said, I'm very high on Israel Adesanya. I'm gonna go with the champ, man.
You're going with Adesanya?
Yeah, I'm going with
Let's
the
go a
champ.
hat.
Go with the champ. Okay.
Okay, we got it's a new hat to the winner. I'm taking the eraser. Look, Israel took out Robert Whittaker. I'm not so high on him. I'm just skeptical on the guys he's taken out. He danced around with Yoel Romero. Paulo Costa went toe-to-toe with him.
Right.
He took out Robert Whittaker, but I'm not so super high on him. I think he's a top 5 fighter in the middleweight division, but I'm not super sold on him. He took out Kelvin Gastelum in December, but that was a 5th round unanimous decision, I believe. And Gastelum's only 16-6 overall record. I know he's got a punch. I know he's got a tough chin, but he's not one of the guys you talk about as one of the premier UFC fighters, not even in his division. So we've got a hat on it. Chris, what else is going on in the world of sports?
Well, right now we have Mike Loxley actually coming out and actually creating a basically something to build up head coaches, and that is called it was called the National Coalition of Minority Coaches. And basically this coalition, basically what it does is it teaches coaches, it teaches them, it helps them get prepared to become head coaches. And it's something that's very unique. And you have 3 actually stand-up board members that these coaches have to go through before they get accepted into this program. Mm-hmm. You have Ozzie Newsome, which is the first black GM for the Baltimore Ravens on that board.
Stand-up guy.
Right. You have Nick Saban, who was also Mike Loxley's coach.
When he was
actually was
coordinator
at Alabama.
Right.
And then on top of that, then you have Mike Tomlin from the Pittsburgh Steelers that's also on that board. And so
he's still a coach there?
He's still a coach there at Pittsburgh. Yes,
Why?
he is. Well,
okay, that's another day. Go ahead.
That's right. He's a stand-up guy. But yeah, this is something that's very unique because, as we all know, that there are a shortage of African American or minority coaches in sports, whether it's college football, NFL, NBA, whatever. It's just a shortage of that. So that's something great for them to do. And my final story is about Dak Prescott.
Well, real quick, let me just jump in real quick. I'll tell you a guy that I think should get a job. How about Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator at Kansas City?
Yeah.
How come he hasn't gotten a sniff at a head coaching job in the NFL? He's more than qualified. He was a great running back at Colorado. He had a good career at a couple different places in the NFL, San Diego Chargers being one of them. And he's been an absolute stand-up guy in all the coordinating positions he's been. Plus, he's smart. Yeah. He doesn't get into trouble. You don't hear about off-field stuff, and I haven't heard him getting a sniff anywhere in the NFL. I think Eric Bieniemy would be a great candidate, but that's another discussion for another day. What else is going on, Chris?
And what else is going on? We have Dak Prescott that is now also taking up a movement with an inmate in the Oklahoma correctional facility by the name of Julius Jones, who's actually on death row for a murder. Dak Prescott is actually stepping in because in this case, Dak and his reps have seen there are, some discrepancies in this case. Basically, you have a guy who didn't have money for good representation. You had witness accounts that the guy wasn't there. His alibi wasn't taken into consideration, and all of these things are coming into play, and this is stuff that's happening to a lot to minorities, and this is something that Dak is standing up for. I mean, good looking out, Dak.
I like Dak Prescott. Do I think he's one of the top 12 NFL quarterbacks? No. Has he won one playoff game in 4 years? Yes. But is he a stand-up guy in the community? Absolutely. I like him a lot. That music can mean only one thing. It's time to thank our support staff. The man on the board, Zachalicious, brand new, doing a great job for us. My man to the left here, Chris Roberts. El Presidente, Chet 40 for all of us here in the first round. Join us right back here on Monday. Subscribe today, hit the notification button, and become a part of the first round family until Monday, when we will be back here talking about everything going on in the world of sports. Take care of yourselves, everybody.